Selamat siang, selamat sore Bapak dan Ibu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih sudah hadir pada sesi Queensland Hour Webinar Series bersama Trade Investment Queensland Indonesia sore ini. Nama saya Irma Irsyad, saya adalah Principal Business Development Manager dari Trade Investment Queensland, atau kami biasa disingkat dengan TIQ. Mungkin Bapak Ibu bertanya apa itu TIQ. TIQ adalah kantor perwakilan pemerintah Queensland, salah satu negara bagian di Australia, yang membantu untuk menjembatani hubungan antara Queensland dan Indonesia, terutama di bidang perdagangan dan investasi. Tujuan TIQ Indonesia mengadakan Queensland Hour Webinar Series ini adalah untuk agar kontak-kontak kami di Indonesia tetap bisa mendapatkan informasi-informasi terbaru dari Queensland, terutama di bidang pelatihan dan pendidikan. Oleh karena itu akan ada pembicara yang berbeda pada setiap sesi dari Queensland Hour ini dalam beberapa bulan ke depan nanti. Pembicara kita pada sore ini adalah Ibu Lynne Stephens dan Bapak Patrick Albina. Ibu Lynne Stephens adalah Managing Director dari Australasian Leadership Academy atau biasa disingkat dengan ALA, sementara Bapak Patrick adalah partner dari ALA. Judul dari webinar kita sore ini adalah Skills for the Future. Speaker Bapak dan Ibu telah kami mute. Apabila ada pertanyaan, bisa Bapak dan Ibu ketikkan pada Q&A box di bawah screen Anda, dan nanti akan dijawab oleh Ibu Lynne atau Bapak Patrick pada akhir sesi dari webinar ini. Sesi ini juga akan kami rekam untuk tujuan edukasi apabila ada peserta yang berhalangan hadir pada sore ini untuk bisa tetap dapat melihat rekamannya nanti pada channel YouTube TIQ. Turning to our speakers now. Thank you, Lynne and Patrick, for agreeing to be our speakers today. This is our fourth session of the webinar series. And first of all, I would like to thank our participants today. These are mostly teachers from schools, both public and private across Indonesia, and also those HR professionals from various sectors and industries. And they're all eager to learn on information that you will be presenting today and to learn how your approach to education needs holistically, especially those customized training solutions that might be suitable for our network here in country. So without further ado, I'll hand the screen over to you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma, and we're very pleased, and thank you for inviting us for the session today. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully you can see all that there now. So, as you've heard, the topic today is in the webinar is about skills for the future and creating a culture of learning. We're very passionate about the training and creating a culture of learning within the organisation. So the session today will hopefully provide you with some thought-provoking ideas and some insights into the skills that we believe that may be needed in the future. We'll share some holistic approach to the education, and one of the things we do is customised training programs and solutions for individuals and organisations, and we design and develop those programs according to those needs and develop them accordingly. I will start by just providing you an overview of the organisation, about ourselves, our partners, etc., and what we offer. And then Patrick will follow with a bit more in-depth look at how the world has changed, some of the drivers of change, and also some of the ideas about building a workforce for the future. So to give you a little bit of background, the company is called Australasian Leadership Academy, or ALA as we call it for short, because it's quite a bit of a mouthful. I founded the company in July 2010, so it's almost 11 years ago. And we're a national training and workforce development organisation, and we combine our expertise mostly in leadership, management, change, project management and cultural development. We're what we call a registered training organisation, or an RTO. And though whilst that is really valuable to the business, it's not our driving force. What we really focus on is the organisational development and customised training solutions for organisations and individuals. So my role is really about the relationship building, developing customised training solutions, and also building the business alliances and partners that we have. You see that the point of difference we have is very much about the flexible mode of delivery, and we'll go over that a little bit more details a bit later on as well. But we, particularly in the post-COVID, there's been a lot of shift and move in Australia in particular to what we call blended e-learning solutions. We've actually been designing and developing those e-learning solutions for almost 11 years now, and it's really about how we develop and sort of accommodation for applying the learning in the workplace, and we'll go over that in more details as well. But it's very much about outcomes driven. So we really make sure that the programs are designed about applying the skills that you're learning and developing in the workplace itself. One of the things that we really strive on, and our service model, I guess, is really looking at how we bring together those fundamental pillars and support the organisation development growth. So it's really about people, the outcomes and the performance. And what we do is really trying to improve the performance of companies by improving the performance of people. So firstly, we look at the organisation discovery. So it's our discovery phase. And this is where we build the relationships and discover what the training needs are for those organisations and the individuals. We then design and develop the program to suit those needs. And then during that delivery phase, the emphasis is really on that workplace application and the outcomes, which combine then with mentoring and coaching to really assist that application and implementation to the workplace. And finally, we review the return on the investment and really showcase the achievements and success of the programs and the individuals and how they've grown over that time. We're very fortunate to be able to have an amazing group of partners and privileged to work with groups of teams from all over Australia. And I surround myself with really like-minded people who have a passion for leadership and change management, project management, wellness, mental health, entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship programs, and ranging from a whole range of organisations from Edgeware, Creative Entrepreneurships Program, to Gravitas Leadership Group. We've got Alistair Lynch. I'm not sure people know about the AFL in Australia. It's quite big in the football area. So we've got sporting legends that join us for high performance teams. We've got Katrina Walton from the Wellness Designs, really looking at those wellness programs. And of course, Patrick down on the right bottom side is through Quintessential, who we're very proud to partner with, and he's going to be our co-presenter for today. During those the partnerships, we really look at mapping the online content, looking at the national qualifications, and also how we can design and develop those training programs that are really quite unique, and bringing those expertise from a really vast group of people who are industry ready. So one of the things we wanted to talk about is really about the changes to the way we work. So since the changes, there's been significant changes in 2020, as we all know, and particularly around the way people work and live, and it's required new levels of agility and innovation, and also the people be able to navigate through future work. We find that adaptability is really essential leadership skill that's being sought after by employers now during that time. And people look for trends to observe different skills and training perspective, and looking at what is required to position themselves in the organisations post-COVID. It also includes supporting health, safety and wellness of employees, which is vital. The leaders strive, we believe, to navigate the future of work post-COVID, and the employee wellbeing is one of the really crucial parts to the organisation and to the challenges from the organisations across the globe. So we believe investing in employee wellbeing is no longer a nice to have, it's actually an essential critical element, and being able to work through that with the workplace and working remotely. The challenges we've seen is really that people didn't choose to work from home. Many people didn't choose to work from home, and they're struggling with many issues such as poor internet, family at home, all fighting over the internet itself, not setting up in good workspaces, workplaces itself, ergonomics, and missing out on that human interaction, which they once enjoyed. We're all getting to know about Zoom as part of our lives now as well, but it is really quite a different change in the world. And we're seeing more and more of the data and statistics that really reflect the push towards wellness in the workplace. And if I can share with you some of the statistics from a survey of 89% of people surveyed said they wanted at least post-COVID some of these practices to be permanently in their workplace. And some of the top 3 practices are what we've got on the screen there now is about workers really wanted to see more, that 58% wanted to continue to work from home. 59% wanted more flexible hours, and 47% were more dedicated to physical and well-being. So it's an interesting way that moving past COVID, then how do we accommodate that, and how do we then develop the skills to be able to work remotely and help our teams working remotely as well, and those back in the workforce itself. So as I said, the workplace health and safety is really important, but if you want to keep a talented people, we have to think about what's important to them and what matters. And that's really clear from those areas. So as building a strong culture helps employees be engaged, it helps high levels of compliance and also brings business values to life. So without that, without our employee engagement and really looking after our people, the employees crumble. So after the last year, it's a timely reminder that the culture really sits on top and starts from the top. So leadership from the top is really important as well. So as team leaders, learning how to manage and disperse teams and create equity across the workforce and culture plays a key role. As I said before, the adaptability is really identified as one of the leading recruitment companies as a leading skill required by employees right now. In the article, it says employees want their people to be able to pivot to a new role of an area of responsibility as things change and they upskill to remain on top of the new trends, which are relevant to job functions and industry. So the conclusions we draw from that is that we're really looking at what are those skills that's needed, and increasing demand for leadership skills and change management, working through that, and how we then can be strong and effective leaders means be effective change agents, and really looking at the pace of change in the corporate world and the organisations themselves, and how effective change agents can really increase and be sought after as well. Recently attended the World Economic Forum, and Patrick will go over a little bit more of this as well, but interesting enough, the average job industries that were coming from the World Forum was 40% of the core skills will change over the next 5 years. When you think about it, that's really quite a huge amount of changes, and roughly half of what we're doing today will look really, really differently in 5 years' time. And it's widely thought that while many jobs required in 5 years haven't even been developed yet. So how do we then look at what skills that we can have to bring us through and plan for that in the future? So employers will really want people to be able to change into new roles or areas of responsibilities or situations of change. They really need to be able to look at upskilling to maintain that sort of extra skills as well, but maintain it on top of the latest and future trends and relevant to those job industries. So it's an interesting perspective, isn't it? So employers want their people to be able to change in a whole range of areas and responsibilities, like I said, with change and upskilling and looking at the latest trends, but therefore an increasing demand for leadership skills and resilience and adaptability, we feel are really strong and effective leaders and that effective change agent through that area. And the skills that have been identified in many forums, as well as the World Economic Forum, is to look at things like analytical thinking and innovation, active learning and listening strategies is really important. What technologies and use of and monitoring those technologies as well, where's that going to be in the next 5 years? Creativity, originality, initiative, all things that are looking for the different, the new norm, as they're calling it. But change management, project management, leadership skills are across all sorts of industries. So they're the skills that are really important to be able to develop and grow those skills. Communicating with influence, and of course, leading effective workplace relationships and working remotely are those areas that we're finding people are really engaging and really wanting to find out more about, because it's a new way of working with people as well. So, as I said, lifelong learning is really a passion of ours, and becoming that critical part for everyone's career. And with credentials ranging from micro-learning through to accredited programs to qualifications increasing and moving that we offer as well. And I'll go through some of those more at the end of the session. I just wanted to touch on the food for thought to start off with. So I'd like now to introduce Patrick, and he can tell you a little bit more about himself and his background and details before he goes on to the session. But we're really proud to be able to partner with Patrick, and who founded Quintessential, and has a wealth of knowledge in all sorts of areas, and really about having that more effective organisation leaders and managers. And they'll be able to give you some ideas and some tips and food for thought on some of the things as we're moving out of this sort of new area itself.
Is that my cue, Lynn?
That's your cue, and I'll just keep on going through the slides if you like, if I'm a bit slow.
I just want to confirm, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
And do I look the right way around, or am I looking reverse to you?
Well, we're both reversed. I think we might be right, because we've both got the logo in the same way, so I think you're okay.
Okay, good. It was looking a little bit strange on my end, but yeah, good evening, everyone. Look, it's fantastic to be here and share some of my thoughts with you. Maybe if you could go back to the previous slide there, Lynn.
Sure.
Yeah, just a little bit on myself. So as Lynn mentioned, I'm very happy to be partnering with the Australasian Leadership Academy. I sort of add the sort of defence element to the repertoire. I've got over 25 years in defence and leadership, engineering, project management. I actually did some work experience a long time ago in Bandung, in the aerospace sector with, as it were, IPTN or FOCA way back when. So yeah, it's I think there are still some aircraft produced out of there. So it's yeah, a long time ago. But so I've taken a lot of that knowledge learnt from a military foundation, and yeah, applied it to a wide range of industry and yeah, I suppose around the world. So I've had the opportunity to work with Boeing and Airbus, a little bit with FOCA, and some of the work at Augusta Westland in Italy. So one thing is for sure is that the type of challenges that we're facing are certainly becoming more complex, and I'd like to just maybe dig into what that means. But before that, one of the I share with you a quote. One of the quotes that the principal of the school that my kids go into, when they started in kindergarten, she said that we're educating our children for jobs that don't exist. And so that sort of struck me, because when I went to school, a lot of the jobs that we would aspire to be, the things we aspired to be, existed, and we knew what the skill set was. We knew what we had to learn. We knew what was expected. So they were your lawyers, your engineers, your doctors, policemen, astronauts, all of those really good occupations. And whilst many of them still exist, they don't exist in the same form. So what schools have adapted to, and as well as the vet sector and tertiary education, is focusing more on the learning process, learning how to learn rather than learning specific things so we can reproduce them. We're learning to become better problem solvers and creative thinkers, and have those core skills around resilience and adaptability. And that's a fundamental shift that has been created in the last, say, 10 or 20 years. Now, on that point, if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about this one, and I'm not sure, can our participants provide feedback, Irma, or are they all in listening mode?
They are in listening mode, but they can provide feedback through the chat function, Patrick.
Okay, so let me see if I can open up the chat. Okay, so through the chat function, I'll ask you, what are the things that have fundamentally disrupted the world in the past 10 or 20 years? There are some real major disruptive effects that have occurred that have fundamentally shifted the way we live, the way we learn, the way we work. So as a hint, think of the experiences that you've had in your childhood. And for those of you who have children, think of what experiences your children are going through now. What are the things that have fundamentally shifted that? So I'll give you about 30 seconds to think about that. And if you'd like, just provide your thoughts on the panel. Excellent. We've got technology. Yep, definitely one. What else can you think about? Social media, absolutely, without a doubt. What else do we have? What is it about social media that makes it such an influence? What else? Come on, I want to see some more ideas come through on the chat. Yes. If we think about certainly when I was a young boy, who was the expert or who was the influencer? It was normally the expert. Pretty much anyone can get on social media and be an influencer. Yes, that's a good one. What else do we have? Yes, I'm looking at the Q&A. We've got internet as well. Yep. And what else? Yes. The influence goes in two ways: the positive influence and perhaps some of the negative influence. You know, one of the things that was problematic when I was in the military was if you want to know how to make an explosive device, then you can probably find it on the internet, where previously it was, you know, very well protected information. So yes, positive influences and negative influences. Good one. So let's move on to the next slide. Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, so I've got a few of the drivers of change. So for those economists out there, the cycles of economic change are moving faster. It's also creating faster social change. Our cycles of innovation from ideas to production are getting faster and faster. We are a part of a global society. So if you skip down there to travel as being much easier, you know, I remember when I was a boy that traveling was a big thing, and we actually had to go to the travel agent and book our flights, and everything, all the tickets came in a paper form, and it was such a huge experience, where I can book a flight to London on my phone now and pay with it paid in one click. And so traveling across the world, maybe not today, given the situation, but traveling across the world is almost like catching a bus these days. You know, I can go from Brisbane to Jakarta and spend the weekend in Jakarta and come home in time to go to work on Monday. So travel has become so much easier, and we've become much more multicultural. I have my favorite Indonesian restaurant down the road that my children always want to go to every weekend, especially the desserts. So our cuisine, our exposure to different cultures, absolutely. So social media, I think, yes, we've got that one. Technology, the speed of technology has increased exponentially. We're in a stage now where our rate of learning is slower than our rate of knowledge creation. So we are, especially if you're a little bit older like myself, then it makes it difficult because your kids know more about social media and technology and how to operate computers much better than I do. Which is fantastic when they can actually teach my mum how to use an iPad rather than me, because I tend to get quite frustrated with mum. But anyway, she's much better with the kids. Our rate of information, you've got a lot of information we're going through. I remember the days where if I wanted to know something, I actually had to go to a library and look up Encyclopedia Britannica. But now you can find anything on Google. You can Google anything, which I'll get to in a minute. And I think our politics, there are some interesting politics that have happened in the last couple of years that have driven, they don't just affect one area, but everything being so connected. A change in the US or a change in China or a change in Europe affects the way we do things here in Australia, where previously we were quite disconnected. So everything is far more connected and the world is moving at a much, much faster pace. And what we have to learn and the way we have to learn it has fundamentally shifted. Our old ways of learning are no longer effective. And this is part of the shift that we are creating in order to learn how to learn rather than learning specific information and memorizing it. So there's a lot of problem solving and adaptability that's coming into our learning agenda these days. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, and out of just to put a bit of context to what has happened, about 10 years ago, IBM conducted a survey looking at the challenges that leaders have that they're facing. So they looked at 1,500 CEOs worldwide, and they said, well, what is your single biggest problem? What is your number one issue that you're facing? And the CEOs responded quite overwhelmingly with one thing. Now, would anyone like to have a guess at what that one thing is? Have a guess on your chat and see what you come up with. There are probably a lot of things we can put down, but I just want to see if someone actually gets number one. I hope everyone's typing away. Stocks. I'm seeing stocks. What else? No? Okay. Well, I'll give you the answer on the next slide. I hang with stakeholders. Yeah, that's part of it. Stakeholders is a very important part of it. So the number one challenge was complexity as to how complex the world has become. Everything from human interaction to globalization, certainly to stakeholders, the effects that has on stocks, technology. So it's the interconnect. Everything is connected. That we can't move one thing and then and not expect everything else to move as a result. So everything is connected. And some of the things that they said from the survey is we occupy a world that is connected on multiple dimensions at a deep level, and it is a global systems of systems. And what was interesting about that comment is they're saying that our young people, our future leaders, have grown up in this environment and they're naturally far better equipped to deal with this challenge than say the executive leaders of today. So it puts a very, very important focus on the way we educate our children and younger people, not so much with what they're learning, but how they're going about their learning, their ability to learn and problem solve. Another comment was it's subject to system level failures. It requires systems level thinking and about the effectiveness of our infrastructures. So the way we do things can't be hierarchical anymore. It's very network oriented. So if you think of how effective social media is, if we look at it from a positive sense, very effective in communicating. You can broaden, you can spread the message very quickly to a diverse range of stakeholders, and that then creates a particular influence, hopefully for good. But what was interesting about the survey was that over 50% of the CEOs doubted their ability to manage it. They basically said, we do not have the skills to be able to deal with complexity. And where they were looking to is a diverse range of skills, particularly the skills that the emerging leaders, our young people have, because they've grown up in this environment. They know how to use the technology. The social media is natural to them. The internet they were born with. They didn't have to learn it. They just had to. It's lived experience. So there is some fundamental shifts in the way we think about now teaching the next generation. So let's move on there, Lynn. Thank you. Okay, we might need to click through. Yes, so there you go, one more, excellent. So the study of complexity and the effects have continued right throughout the years from 2010, 2015 and onwards, and it continues to become a little bit problematic with how we deal with it. So some very reputable firms have conducted studies and are trying to understand the impact of complexity on the way we manage, the way we teach, the way we problem solve, and how this affects our environment. And if we can get on top of it, then it's something to become very powerful in the way we lead our organizations and teach our children and so on and so forth. So there are lots of studies there, and I've included some of them for your reference. You may wish to look them up, and I think many of them are on the public domain that you can pull the reports off the internet. So if we move on to the next slide, another way to look at it is the number of people who have Googled the word complexity. The number of people that have Googled the word systems thinking. It's a methodology that we teach here, systems thinking, systems theory. One of the methodologies that we teach here at the Australian Leadership Academy around how to deal with complexity, and it's a different way of thinking. So you can see there in one column in 2016, 2018, and then 2020, the exponential increase in people trying to educate themselves about what this phenomena called complexity is, and some clues about systems thinking, how to deal with it. If we move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we are looking in the year, this one was 2019, so one of the more contemporary studies about the thinking of how we need to educate ourselves to become better leaders. And as I'll talk about in the next coming slides, the fundamental principles of leadership itself has changed. And so normally, if I'm in a workshop environment and I can see a show of hands here, I would normally ask, how many people lead teams? Okay, and normally I would get quite a few people saying, yes, I lead teams, a team of teachers, I'm a manager of a team of people. And then I ask, how many people lead their team members, and where their team members actually have a higher level of knowledge than they do, or a higher level of skill. And when the participants have a think about it, they actually say, yeah, actually there are a lot of young people that may not have a broad range of knowledge because they've got less experience, but in terms of those particular skills, specifically with technology or economics or contemporary analysis or creative problem solving, they're actually a lot more educated around the more modern techniques and the more modern technology. And so then I ask, well, how do you change your leadership style? How do you educate yourself and each other to be able to leverage and to take advantage of the knowledge in the team rather than rely on your own knowledge? Okay, and so this is one of the questions that was explored in this study by Deloitte in the human capital trends, global human capital trends. And surprisingly, they said less than a third of organizations believe that they're effectively building leaders who can deal with the future. Some of those concepts that Lynne spoke about earlier around adaptability, the core skills, the resilience, the problem solving, the creativity. And you can see some of the statistics there that some of the questions I answered and some of the responses. So this became a little bit alarming in that we're now having to think about how we teach. What are the topics that we're teaching? Are they correct? Just because we've always done it in a particular way, it doesn't mean that that's going to be correct moving into the future. Yeah. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, we can ask ourselves, why is this shift occurring? And if you click on a couple more points there, Lynne. Yes. So, oops, back one. Excellent. Thank you. The foundations of what we understand to be management and leadership today are founded in what we call industrial era thinking. So it's where you had the manager or the director, the team leader. They're the ones that held the knowledge. They're the ones that gave the guidance. They're the ones that gave the instructions and the directions. But if we think of how we're educated today, we're far more, we have a broader range of people who are educated. And as I mentioned before, some of those people actually may be more educated than ourselves who are leading the teams. So we then, as leaders, become the facilitators of knowledge. We have to focus more on the team rather than the content. And this is no different than, say, in a teaching environment where, yes, the teacher is there and he or she is also a facilitator of knowledge, where the students will learn from their fellow students as much as the teacher themselves. And I certainly know from my kids, a lot of what they learn is not from me, and it's not from formal classroom teaching. It's from it's from each other. Whether it's legitimate content or whether it's how to floss or to plank or to all those things that I have no idea what they're doing, but they seem to be having fun anyway. So the way we're thinking about learning has shifted. So if we go into the next slide there, and a few more clicks. So we're now what's called in the knowledge era. So we're leveraging our intellectual capacity, our ability to adapt and learn and share, tell stories, share knowledge through images and concepts and conversations rather than formal teaching. And this continues right through into the workplace. And I saw it in the military a lot of the time, most of the time, in fact. We were said, right, you finished your military training. That was all the formal stuff. Now we're going to teach you how it really works in the workplace. And so as an aerospace engineer, they said, here, take these tools and try apply your university out in the rain, in the heat, in the humidity, in the dust, and try fix that aircraft. You'll learn the real way how to do things. And so I learned from the more experienced showing me how it really works, using the foundation of the university teaching to base my experience. So we're in what's called a knowledge era. We're taking the information and we're applying it individually and collectively as knowledge. Okay, next slide. Okay, and the shift is this. We've moved from a bureaucratic mindset. Oops, one back. Thank you. So we're moving from a less of a hierarchical top-down power to a more shared power, shared knowledge, It's through being connected to everyone else. So it's very much a network. So think about a hierarchy chart in an organization, and then think about how information might flow on Facebook. You know, when things go viral, if you want something to go viral, Facebook, LinkedIn, social media networks, so information spreads a lot quicker than formal channels. Okay, and as I mentioned there, in the bureaucracy, the leader is the director. They're the holder of knowledge, and they're the giver of instructions. We're in our era now, we as leaders are facilitators of information and of skills. So we seek to influence others because they're educated, they're motivated, and they will solve their problems. And someone's just put Twitter. Yes, absolutely. Twitter. And what's that one with videos? TikTok is another one. You know, I'm not sure whether that's a positive or a negative influence. Depends who you ask. But yes, and Instagram would be another one. All those mainstream social media channels. Very good. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so Lynne touched previously on the World Economic Forum, and you can see that they do some really fantastic studies on how skills are shifting. So you can see that there's not a lot of pure technical skills here. It's all about problem solving, creativity, innovation, working with people. It comes down to really comes down to better decision making in the environment. So this continues. I think there is a projection for 2025 and 2030, and it continues down the complexity and innovation and adaptability pathway. So if we are equipped to learn how to learn, then we can adapt for what the future holds in store, the unknown future, because who knows what's going to happen after COVID. Okay, another way to look at it is we're in a new era which takes new skills. So another big influence that's happening right now is artificial intelligence. So there's quite an interesting conversation happening about how artificial intelligence will impact our learning, our jobs, our future. What it also has meant, which hasn't come through in the press very strong, is as artificial intelligence, as machine learning increases, the importance of soft skills also increases. So whilst it removes manual repetitive labor, it also places a much greater influence, or a much greater importance rather, on our ability to problem solve creatively and to do those things that we as human beings can do and that machines cannot. So the proportion of soft skills intensive occupations is increasing. So the future of skills is around our ability to work with people and the diverse range of people. Right, so a few more clicks. If we look at performance, what are the impacts that are happening there? Well, you can see a whole range of things that we need to consider to get performance. So new skills, we have to deal with increasing complexity, dealing with people and teams. Our workforce has changed, and I'm not sure whether this is a term that's commonly used in Indonesia, but gig economy. There are lots of small businesses that are popping up everywhere, and we're tending to move away from working for the big organization. So we have lots of small organizations and small businesses that form an ecosystem. Rather than have a small number of big players, we have a large number of small players. We're also finding that we have a limited talent pool. And so when I consult to organizations, one of their common problems is not just we can't find the right people, more importantly, we can't find the appropriate people who are appropriately skilled and have the appropriate attitude to work through the problems that we have. In addition to that, we also have the baby boomer generation, which who are aging, and with them they are in their happy retirement. They're also taking a lot of skills that they've built up over a lot of years. So there is a real focus on extracting the knowledge out of their head. Okay, a couple more slides. How do we do that? I might skip this slide and go to the next one, which is important. So we've introduced the term competency. We've removed the term knowledge, and competency takes a much more holistic view of what we desire. So a competency is equal to the sum of knowledge that we acquire through our formal training. It includes the skills to be able to apply that knowledge in context to achieve an outcome. It includes the behaviour in the way we conduct ourselves and interact with others. And it also includes our desire for how much we want something to occur. So next slide. When we put all of that together, the focus on learning is the combination of all four of those factors. All too often, we focus on just one, and that's just, in a tertiary sense, it's knowledge. In a vet sense, it is skills. But what we have to do is look at all four of them in order to create the performance that we desire, right? So it's this knowledge plus skills, plus behaviors plus desires. So basically, you have to be appropriately knowledgeable with the right level of skills. And I'm not talking about, you know, PhD doctorate level, but it's appropriate. So it's a balance between all of these four. And we need to support our people in with the right behaviors and having the appropriate desires and ambition to want to achieve. And so the balance of all four, they don't all have to be high, they just have to be in the right balance, appropriate to the job or appropriate to the sector. That leads to performance. So it's a much broader approach than just focusing on only training. Okay, and I think
that's the end of that slide.
Yeah, so yeah. Our focus at ALA is all four, and I'll just hand back to yourself, Lynne.
Thanks, Patrick. Just got a couple of final slides just to wrap up and talk a little bit more about a model of delivery, and then we'll open it up to questions. I know there were some questions before as well, but we might have actually answered some of those as well, so we'll see how that goes. But just wanted to share with you, and it's a very hard slide to see together, but just to give you an overview of what a blended solution looks like, and you know, the introduction and the importance of what we're talking about, the blended sort of model. So it's very much about action learning workshops, really looking at the themes, and what you'll see underneath the themes themselves, they're designed around that specific framework, whether it's the leadership capability or the desires of the organisations or the individuals. So we design those in that discovery phase around what's important to the organisations. Most of the time it's really aligned to very similar things like the capability and change needs and etc. But we manage that with also the coaching and mentor, as I spoke to earlier as well. But the big thing is the workplace application and really making sure that those competencies are embedded into the workplace itself. And that can be done through a number of areas with business improvement initiatives and projects, but they're real live projects that are working in the organisation, not just a study type thing as well. And the other side of it is the peer group session. So it's really important to get that learning from your peers, as Patrick talked about before in the playground. Same thing, we learn from our peers, our colleagues all the time. So there's so much involved with that. And then the online e-learning as well, but we align them to the Certificate 4 up to advanced diploma qualifications as well. And that's just a brief overview of some of the qualifications that we have. We offer a range of things from micro-learning, what we call skill bites, which is that just-in-time learning. And one of the questions earlier in the day was, you know, how do we get that upskilling? And one of the things that we've developed over the last few years is about that micro-credentialing and really looking at what are the skills I need right now, not necessarily for a full qualification, but what are the things I need to upskill or to develop in those areas. And so we've called them those micro-learning. But the beauty of them is that they can actually then go training pathways towards what we call bundles or themes or the accreditation. And of course the bespoke type workshops and training that we have as well, and a whole range of things in masterclass and wellness and mental health, etc. So I handed over to question time, and we did have a few that we could probably go over, but it'd be nice to see if there's any other questions from anyone that has something following the session.
Thank you, Lynne and Patrick, for the presentation. It's very insightful. It's very interesting to hear that when you mentioned many jobs required within the next 5 years, not even developed yet. So
Exactly.
it's exciting and it's scary at the same time. So there's a huge need for upskilling here, especially in Indonesia. So one of the participants asked Miss Lita Marliana from Mutiara Harapan Islamic School. She asked, her question was how to intrigue change management when one is aware that change is from the top while one is not the decision maker. Would you like to answer that, Lynne or Patrick? Thank you.
Well, Patrick probably answered a lot better for me, than me. But I think the leadership and change it happens at all levels. So even though it's not from the top, it's throughout that. To me, it's about collaboration and sharing, and really working together in teams and working through that change. I think a lot of the times change is hidden from different people. It's almost like people hold on to the information because then someone else might know more than what they do, sort of thing as well. So it's that sort of ability to be able to share and bring the people with you and have them on board to come through that change, I think is really, really important. And it's building those soft skills to be able to do that, because it really is about working with people, working with influence, but also managing that workplace relationships, which is so important, and building that trust. I feel it's really important sort of in that journey. But Patrick, you might be able to answer a little bit more on that as well.
Yeah, it's look, it's quite, for me, it's quite simple. If, making or creating change to an organisation that doesn't want to change, it's hard. I won't challenge that. It is a very difficult task. Now, this comes back down to the skill of influence. And so the ability to lead change is getting others to do what you want to do because they want to do it. So it answers the what's in it for me principle. Why should I invest? The answer that the question that the leader has to be prepared to answer and tell their workforce is, why should I invest my energy into making this change? So what's in it for me? How does it benefit me? So as a lower level leader, when you're told that you have to make this change, one of the challenges that you're going to have is interpreting that message to make help your team make sense of it, and to interpret such that it becomes meaningful at a local level. So the top level executive might say, well, we need to do a cost-cutting measure, and so how do you interpret that message to make it more meaningful at the local team level? It might be about team sustainability. It might be about improvement. And so it's changing. It's creating that compelling message that is relevant to the local area, to the team, your local team rather.
Great.
Thank you for the answer. And we have another good question coming from Ms. Suryani Eka Wijaya from the Transportation Department of Nusa Tenggara Barat Province. This sounds simple, but it's difficult to in real life how to practice it. How to motivate? Her question is how to motivate people to increase their productivity at work.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Do you want me to have a crack at this one, Lynne?
Go for it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the terms. We're driven by what's called motivators. So we're motivated to do something for a reason, and so those motivational factors to become productive can either be what's called extrinsic, external, or intrinsic, internal. The internal drivers, the internal motivators are far stronger than the externals. The studies have shown that you know, if you achieve this production, you might get a particular pay rise. But that only provides sufficient motivation for a finite period of time, because you're going to effectively forget that pay rise in a matter of time. What becomes more motivational is a compelling purpose, a reason that can be deeply personal. Now that can be easy or difficult depending on the sector you're in. And so if it's like a healthcare sector, then the value to the human client or the customer is very clear, because the feedback is immediate. Where you're in a sector like banking or economics, yes, that can be a little bit more difficult. So it'll come down to how clever the motivators within that environment is designed to enable someone to become more productive. Often executive management saying that you must do this because I'm going to direct you to do this and we have to do this. That's only short term. So our leadership has to become more adaptable to. They can't be more directive. They have to be. It goes back to that slide. It's not about control anymore. It's about influence. So that's where the skill of influence becomes very important. I have to influence my people to become more productive because they want to do it, not because I'm telling them to.
True. And I think just to add just something onto that, and from a personal experience with the team also, it's about how do you find the passion? And for me, it's about collaboration. So getting the team involved and have some ownership on what the decisions, and being in a collaborative mode really helps as well. Because if you're just trying to direct something that they're not understanding or really enthusiastic about, they're not going to be motivated. So how do you do that and really get them on board? And one of my old mentors used to say the same thing: is here's the train, it's leaving in such and such a time. If you want to come on board, this is on there, otherwise you get left behind. But it was a different way of putting it together. But it really was saying, this is how we want to, this is our values, this is what we want to achieve as a collaborative, and this is how we need to build that by giving them some ownership in the decisions and the discussions as well. I think it's really important.
Thanks, Lynne and Patrick. And the last question was, one of the participants asked how to get in touch with you both. So I could answer that one. In the next few days, we'll send an email. TIQ will send an email. In that email will be contain a link to the recording of this session, as well as a feedback survey from TIQ. If the participants could fill that in, it will be appreciated so that we could improve our future sessions based on your feedback. And also will be included our contact details, where I could connect you with both Lynne and Patrick. So Bapak dan Ibu, dalam beberapa hari ke depan, TIQ Indonesia akan mengirimkan email yang isinya adalah link kepada recording hari ini, dan juga akan ada survei di dalam email tersebut. Mohon bantuan Bapak dan Ibu untuk mengisinya supaya sesi kami yang berikutnya akan lebih baik lagi berdasarkan feedback dari Bapak dan Ibu. Dan juga akan ada kontak detail saya di situ apabila Bapak dan Ibu ingin ada pertanyaan untuk Lynne atau Patrick, atau mungkin ada follow up question, bisa lewat sana. So this is it. I'm conscious of the time. It's 16 WIB now in Indonesia. So thank you so much, Lynne and Patrick, to be our speakers today, and also for our participants. And thank you all for the questions, all good questions. And we hope to see you again in the next Queensland Hour. Selamat sore. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for
Bye
having me.
for now.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Terima kasih.
Sama-sama. Terima kasih.